25th day of Bhagavad Gita. Good morning to all of you. Verses 12, page number 561. Those who are thus bewildered are attacked by demonic and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. There are many devotees who assume themselves to be in Christian consciousness and devotional service, but at start do not accept the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Christian as the absolute truth. For them, the fruit of devotional service, going back to Godhead, will never be tasted. Similarly, those who are engaged in fruitive, pious activities and who are ultimately hoping to be liberated from this material entanglement will never be successful either, because they deride the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Christian, in other words, persons who mock Christian are to be understood to be demonic or atheistic as described in the 7th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Such demonic miscreants never surrendered to Christian. Therefore, their mental speculation to arrive at the absolute truth bring them to the false conclusion that the ordinary living entity and Christian are one and the same. With such a false conviction, they think that the body of any human being is now simply covered by material nature, and that as soon as one is liberated from this material body, there is no difference between God and himself. This attempt to become one with Krishna will be baffled because of delusion. Such atheistic and demonic cultivation of spiritual knowledge is always futile. That is the indication of this verse. For such persons, cultivation of the knowledge in the Vedic literature like the Vedanta Sutra and the Upanishad is always baffled. It is a great offense, therefore, to consider Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to be an ordinary man. Those who do so are certainly deluded because they cannot understand the eternal form of Krishna. One who considers the body of Krishna to be material should be driven out from all rituals and activities of the Shruti and the Smriti. And if one by chance see his face, one should at once take bath in the Ganges to rid himself of infection. People jeer at Krishna because they are envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Their destiny is certainly to take birth after birth in the spaces of atheistic and demoniac life. Perpetually, their real knowledge will remain under delusion, and gradually they will regress to the darkest region of creation. Verses 13th. O son of Parth, those who are not deluded, the great souls are under the protections of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as a Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. In this verse, the description of the Mahatma is clearly given. The first sign of Mahatma is that he is already situated in the divine nature. He is not under the control of material nature. And how is this affected? That is explained in the 7th chapter. One who surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna at once becomes freed from the control of material nature. That is a qualification. One can become free from the control of material nature as soon as he surrenders his soul to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is the binary formula. Being marginal potency, as soon as the living entity is freed from the control of material nature, he is put under the guidance of spiritual nature. The guidance of the spiritual nature is called Devi Prakriti, divine nature. So, when one is promoted in that way by surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one attains to the stage of great soul Mahatma. The Mahatma does not divert his attention to anything outside Krishna. Because he knows perfectly well that Krishna is the original supreme person, the cause of all causes. There is no doubt about it. Such a Mahatma or great soul develops through association with other Mahatmas, pure devotees. Pure devotees are not even attracted by Krishna's other features, such as the four-armed Mahavishnu. They are simply attracted by the two-armed form of Krishna. They are not attracted to other features of Krishna, nor are they concerned with any form of a demigod or a human being. They meditate only upon Krishna consciousness. They are always engaged in the unswearing service of the Lord in Krishna consciousness. Verses 14th. Always chanting by glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me. These great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. The Mahatma cannot be manufactured by rubber stamming an ordinary man. His symptoms are described here. A Mahatma is always engaged in chanting the glories of the Supreme Lord Krishna, personality of Godhead. He has no other business. He is always engaged in the glorification of the Lord. In other words, he is not an impersonalist. When the question of glorification is there, one has to glorify the Supreme Lord, praising His holy name, His eternal form, His transcendental qualities, and His uncommon pastimes. One has to glorify all these things. Therefore, a Mahatma is attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who is attached to the personal feature of the Supreme Lord, the Brahmjyoti, is not described as Mahatma. In the Bhagavad Gita, he is described in different way in the next verse. The Mahatma is always engaged in different activities of devotion service, as described in the Shrimad Bhagavatam, hearing and chanting about Vishnu, not a demigod or human being. That is devotion. Remembering him, such a Mahatma has firm determination to achieve at the ultimate and the association of the Supreme Lord in any one of five transcendental rasas, rasa. To achieve that success, he engages all activities, mental, bodily, and vocal, everything in the service of the Supreme Lord, Shri Krishna, that is called full Krishna consciousness. In devotion service, there are certain activities which are called determined, such as fasting on certain days like the 11th day of the moon, Ekadashi, and on the appearance day of the Lord. All these rules and regulations are offered by the great acharyas for those who are actually interested in getting admission into association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the transcendental world. The Mahatmas, great souls, strictly observe all these rules and regulations, and therefore they are sure to achieve the desired result. As described in the second verse of this chapter, not only is this devotional service easy, but it can be performed in a happy mood. One does not need to undergo any seva, penance, and austerity. He can live this life in devotional service, guided by an expert spiritual master and in any position, either as a householder or a sannyasi or a brahmachari. In any position and anywhere in the world, he can perform this devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and thus become actually Mahatma, a great soul. Verses 15th. Others who engage in sacrifice by the cultivation of knowledge worship the Supreme Lord as one without a second, as diverse in many and in the universal form. This verse is the summary of the previous verses. The Lord tells Arjun that those who are purely in Krishna consciousness and do not know anything other than Krishna are called Mahatma. Yet there are other persons who are not exactly in the position of Mahatma but who worship Krishna also in different ways. Some of them have already been described as the distressed, the financially destitute, the inquisitive, and those who are engaged in the cultivation of knowledge. But there are others who are still lower, and these are divided into three. First is he who worships himself as one with the Supreme Lord. Second is he who contacts some from of the Supreme Lord and worships that. And third is he who accepts the universal form, the Vishwarup of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and worships that. Out of the above three, the lowest, those worship themselves as the Supreme Lord, thinking themselves to be monists. Monists are most predominant. Such people think themselves to be the Supreme Lord, and in this mentality they worship themselves. This is also a type of God worship, for they can understand and they are not the material body but are actually spiritual soul. At least such a sense is prominent. Generally, the impersonalists worship the Supreme Lord in this way. The second class includes the worshippers of the demigods, those who by imagination consider any form to be the form of the Supreme Lord. And the third class includes those who cannot conceive of anything beyond the manifestation of this material universe. They consider the universe to be the supreme organism or entity and worship that. The universe is also a form of the Lord. Verse is 16th. But it is I who am the ritual, I the sacrifice, the offering to the ancestors, the healing herb, the transcendental chant. I'm the butter and the fire and the offering. The Vedic sacrifice known as Jyotistoma is also Krishna, and he is also the Mahayajan. Mentioned in the Smriti, the oblations offered to the Pitrulok or sacrifice performed to please the Pitrulok, considered as a kind of drug in the form of clarified butter, is also Krishna. The mantras chanted in this connection are also Krishna, and many other commodities and made with milk products for offering in the sacrifice are also Krishna. The fire is also Krishna because fire is one of the five material elements and is therefore claimed as the separated energy of Krishna. In other words, the Vedic sacrifices recommended in the Kram Kand division of the Veds are in the total also Krishna. or in other words, those who are engaged in rendering devotional service unto Krishna are to be understood to have performed all the sacrifices recommended in the Veds. Verse 17th. I am the father of this universe, the mother, the support, and the grandsire. I am the object of knowledge, the purifier and the syllable Om. I am also the Arjay, the Sam, and the Yajurveds. Samved, Yajurveds, and Rijved. The entire cosmic manifestation, moving and non-moving, are manifested by different activities of Krishna's energy. In the material existence, we create different relationships with different living entities who are nothing but Krishna's marginal energy. Under the creation of Prakriti, some of them appear as our father, mother, grandfather, creator, etc. But actually, they are parts and parcel of Krishna. As such, these living entities who appear to be our father, mother, etc., are nothing but Krishna. In this verse, the word that means creator. Not only are our father and mother parts and parcels of Krishna, but the creator, grandmother, and grandfather, etc., are also Krishna. Actually, any living entity being part and partial of Krishna is Krishna. All the Veds, therefore, aim only towards Krishna. Whatever we want to know through the Veds is but a progressive step toward understanding Krishna. That subject matter which helps us purify our constitutional position is especially Krishna. Similarly, the living entity who is inquisitive to understand all Vedic principles is also part and parcel of Krishna, and such is also Krishna. In all the Vedic mantras, the word Om called Pranav is a transcendental sound vibration and is also Krishna. And because in all the hymns of the four Veds, Sam, Yajur, Rij, and Athrav, the Pranav or Omkara is very prominent. Pranav or Omkara is very permanent. It is understood to be Krishna. Verse is 18th. I am the goal, the sustainer, the master, the witness, the abode, the refuge, and the most dear friend. I am the creation, the annihilations, the basis of everything, the resting place, and the eternal seat. Gati means destination, where we want to go, but the ultimate goal is Krishna. Although people do not know it, one who does not know Krishna is misled, and his so-called progressive matter is either partial or hallucinatory. There are many who make as their destination different demigods, and by reached performance at the strict respective methods they reach different planets known as Chandralok, Suryalok, Indralok, Maharlok, etc. But all such loks or planets, being creation of Krishna, are simultaneously Krishna and not Krishna. Such planets, being manifestation of Krishna's energy, are also Krishna, but actually they serve only as a step forward for realization of Krishna. To approach the different energies of Krishna is to approach Krishna indirectly. One should direct approach Krishna, for that will save time and energy. For example, if there is a possibility of going to the top of a building by the help of an elevator, why should one go by the case, step by step. Everything is resting on Krishna's energy. Therefore, without Krishna's shelter, nothing can exist. Krishna is the supreme ruler because everything belongs to him and everything exists on his energy. Krishna, being situated in everyone's heart, is the supreme witness. The residents, countries, or planets on which we live are also Krishna. Krishna is the ultimate goal of shelter, and therefore one should take shelter of Krishna, either for protection or for annihilations, annihilation of his distress. And whenever we have to take protection, we should know that our protection must be a living force. Krishna is the supreme living entity, and since Krishna is the source of our generation or the supreme father, no one can be better friend than Krishna. No can anyone be a better well-wisher. Krishna is the original source of creation and the ultimate rest after annihilations. Krishna is there, the eternal cause of all causes. Verses 19th. O Arjun, I give heat and I withhold and send for the rain. I am immortality and I am also death personified. Both spirit and matter are in me. Krishna by his different energies diffuses heat and light through the agencies of electricity and the sun. During summer season, it is Krishna who checks rain from falling from the sky, and then during the rainy season, he gives unceasing torrents of rain, the energy which sustains us by prolonging the duration of our life is Krishna, and Krishna meets us at the end as death. By analyzing all these different energies of Krishna, one can ascertain that for Krishna there is no distinction between matter and spirit, or in other words, he is both matter and spirit. In the advanced stage of Krishna consciousness, one therefore makes no such distinction. He sees only Krishna in everything. Since Krishna is both matter and spirit, the jugunating universal form comprising all material manifestation is also Krishna, and his pastimes in Vrindavan as two-handed Samsundar playing on a flute are those of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Verses 20th. Those who study the Veds and drinks the Soma juice, seeking the heavenly planets, worship me directly, purified of sinful reactions. They take birth on the pure heavenly planet of Indra, where they enjoy godly delights. The word Trividya refers to the three Veds, Sam, Yajur and Rich. A Brahman who has studied these three Veds is called a Trived. Anyone who is very much attached to knowledge derived from these three Veds is respected in society. Unfortunately, there are many great scholars of the Veds who do not know the ultimate purport of studying them. Therefore, Krishna herein declares himself to be the ultimate goal for the three Veds. Actual three Vedis take shelter under the lotus feet of Krishna and engage in pure devotional service to satisfy the Lord. Devotional service begins with the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra and side by side trying to understand Krishna in truth. Unfortunately, those who are simply official students of the Veds become more interested in offering sacrifices to the different demigods like Indra and Kendra By such endeavor, the worshippers of different demigods are certainly purified of the contamination of the lower qualities of nature and are thereby elevated to the higher planetary systems or heavenly planets known as Maharlok, Janolok, Tapolok, Mahalok, Janlok, Taplok, etc. Once situated on those higher planetary systems, one can satisfy his senses hundreds of thousands of times better than on this planet. Verses 21st. When they have thus enjoyed vast heavenly sense pleasure and the results of their pious activities are exhausted, they return to this mortal planet again. Thus, those who seek sense enjoyment by adhering to the principles of the three faiths achieve only repeated birth and death. One who is promoted to the higher planetary systems enjoys a longer duration of life and better facilities for sense enjoyment, yet one is not allowed to stay there forever. One is again sent back to this earth upon finishing the resultant fruits of pious activities. He who has not attained perfection of knowledge as indicated in the Vedanta Sutra, or in other words, he who fails to understand Krishna, the cause of all causes, becomes baffled about achieving the ultimate goal of life and is thus subjected to the routine of being promoted to the higher planets and then again coming down, as if situated on a Ferris wheel which sometimes goes up and sometimes comes down. The purport is that instead of being elevated to the spiritual world, from which there is no longer any possibility of coming down, one simply revolves in the cycle of birth and death on higher and lower planetary systems. One should better take to the spiritual world to enjoy an eternal life full of bliss and knowledge and never return to the miserable material existence. Verses 22nd. But those who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack, and I preserve what they have. One who is unable to live for a moment without Krishna consciousness cannot but think of Krishna 24 hours a day, being engaged in devotional service by hearing, chanting, remembering, offering prayers, worshipping, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, rendering other services, cultivating friendship, and surrendering fully to the Lord. Such activities are all auspicious and full of spiritual potencies, which make the devotee perfect in self-realization, so that his only desire is to achieve the association of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such a devotee undoubtedly approaches the Lord without difficulty. This is called yoga. But the mercy of the Lord, such a devotee never comes back to this material condition of life. Sim Kisma refers to the merciful protection of the Lord. The Lord helps the devotee of achieve Krishna consciousness by yoga, and when he comes fully Krishna conscious, the Lord protects him from falling down to a miserable condition life. Verses 23rd. Those who are devotees of other gods and who worship them with faith actually worship only me, O son of Kunti, but they do know, but they do so in a wrong way. Persons who are engaged in the worship of demigods are not very intelligent, although such worship is offered to me indirectly, Krishna says. Krishna says, for example, when a man pours water on the leaves and branches of a tree without pouring water on the root, he does so without sufficient knowledge or without observing regulative principles. Similarly, the process of rendering service to different parts of the body is to supply food to the stomach. The demigods are, so to speak, different officers and directors in the government of the Supreme Lord. One has to follow the laws made by the government, not by the officers or directors. Similarly, everyone is to offer his worship to the Supreme Lord or directors. Similarly, everyone is to offer his worship to the Supreme Lord. Only that will automatically satisfy the different officers and directors of the Lord. The officers and directors are engaged as representatives of the government and to offer some bribe to the officers and directors in illegal. This is started here as avidhi pavakam. In other words, Krishna does not approve the unnecessary worship of the demigods. Verses 24th. I am the only enjoyer and master of all sacrifices. Therefore, those who do not recognize my true transcendental nature fall down. Here, it is clearly stated that there are many types of yajna performances recommended in the Vedic literatures, but actually all of them are meant for satisfying the Supreme Lord. Yajna means Vishnu. In the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that one should only work for satisfying yajna of Vishnu. The perfectional form of human civilization known as Varnashram Dharma is specifically meant for satisfying Vishnu. Therefore, Krishna says in this verse, I am the enjoyer of all sacrifices because I am the supreme master. Less intelligent persons, however, without knowing this fact, worship demigods for temporary benefit. Therefore, they fall down to material existence and do not achieve the desired goal of life. If, however, anyone has any material desire to be fulfilled, he had better pray for it to the Supreme Lord, although that is not pure devotion, and he will thus achieve the desired result. Is 25th. Those who worship the demigods will take birth among the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors go to the ancestors. Those who worship ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings, and those who worship me we will live with me. If one has any desire to go to the moon, the sun, or any other planet, one can attain the desired destination by following specific Vedic principles recommended for that purpose, such as the process technically known as thus Puranmasi. These are vividly described in the fruitive activities portion of the Veds, which recommends a specific worship of demigods situated on different heavenly planets. Similarly, one can attain the pit planets by performing a specific yajna. Similarly, one can go to many ghostly planets and become a yaksh, raksh, raksha or pisach. Pisach worship is called black arts or black magic. There are many men who practice this black art and they think that it is spiritualism, but such activities are completely materialistic. Similarly, a pure devotee who worships the Supreme Personality of Godhead only achieves the planets of Vaikuntha and Krishnalok without a doubt. It is very easy to understand through this important verse that if by simply worshipping the demigods one can achieve the heavenly planets, or by worshipping the pits and achieve the pit planets, or by practicing the black arts achieve the ghostly planets. Why can they pure devotee not achieve the planet of Krishna or Vishnu? Unfortunately, many people have no information of these sublime planets where Krishna and Vishnu live, and because they do not know of them, they fall down. Even the impersonalists fall down from the Brahma Jyoti. The Christian consciousness movement are therefore disturbing sublime information to the entire human society, to the effect that by simply chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, one can become perfect in this life and go back home, back to Godhead. Verses 26. If one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. For the intelligent person, it is essential to be in Christian consciousness, engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. In order to achieve a permanent, blissful abode for eternal happiness, the process of achieving such a marvelous result is very easy and can be attempted even by the poorest of the poor without any kind of qualification. The only qualification required in this connection is to be a pure devotee of the Lord. It does not matter what one is or where one is situated. The process is so easy that even a leaf or a little water or fruit can be offered to the Supreme Lord in genuine love, and the Lord will be pleased to accept it. No one, therefore, can be barred from Christian consciousness because it is so easy and universal. Who is such a fool that he does not want to be Christian conscious by this simple method and thus attain the highest perfectional life of eternity, bliss and knowledge? Christian wants only loving service and nothing more. Christian accepts even a little flower from his pure devotee. He does not want any kind of offering from a non-devotee. He is not in need of anything from anyone because he is self-sufficient, and yet he accepts the offering of his devotee in an exchange of love and affection. To develop Christian consciousness is the highest perfection of life. Bhakti is mentioned twice in this verse in order to declare more emphatically that bhakti or devotional service is the only means to approach Krishna. No other condition, such as becoming a Brahman, a learned scholar, a very rich man, or a great philosopher can include Krishna to accept some offering. Without the basic principle of bhakti, nothing can induce the Lord to agree to accept anything from anyone. Bhakti is never causal. The process is eternal. It is direct action in service to the absolute whole. Here, here, Lord Krishna, having established that he is the only enjoyer, the primeval Lord, and the real object of all sacrificial offerings, reveals what types of sacrifices he desires to be offered. If one wishes to engage in devotional service to the Supreme in order to be purified and to reach the goal of life, the transcendental loving service of God, then one should find out what the Lord desires of him. One who loves Krishna will give him whatever he wants, and he avoids offering anything which is undesirable or unasked. Thus, meat, fish, and eggs should not be offered to Krishna. If he desired such things as offerings, he would have said so instead. He clearly requests that a leaf, fruits, flowers, and water be given to him, and he says of this offering, I will accept it. Therefore, we should understand that he will not accept meat, fish and eggs, vegetables, grains, fruits, milk, and water are the proper foods for human beings and are prescribed by Lord Krishna himself. Whatever else we eat cannot be offered to him, since he will not accept it. Thus, we cannot be acting on the level of loving devotion if we offer such foods. In the third chapter, verse 13, Shri Krishna explains that only the remains of sacrifice are purified and fit for consumptions by those who are seeking advancement in life and release from the clutches of the material entanglement. Those who do not make an offering of their food, he says, in the same verse, they are eating only sin. In other words, their every mouthful is simply deepening their involvement in the complexities of material nature. But preparing nice, simple vegetables dishes, offering them before the picture or deity of Lord Krishna and bowing down, praying for him to accept such a humble offering enables one to advance steadily in life, to purify the body, and to create fine brain tissues which will lead to clear thinking. Above all, the offering should be made with an attitude of love. Krishna has no need of food, since he already possesses everything that be. Yet he will accept the offering of one who desires to please him in that way. The important element in preparations, in serving, and in offering is to act with love for Krishna. The impersonalist philosophers who wish to maintain that the absolute truth is without senses cannot comprehend this verse of Bhagavad Gita. To them, it is either a metaphor or proof of the mundane character of Krishna, the speaker of the Bhagavad Gita, but in actuality, Krishna, the Supreme Godhead, has senses, and it is stated that his senses are interchangeable. In other words, one sense can perform the function of any other. This is what it means to say that Krishna is absolutely lacking senses. He could hardly be considered full in all opulences. In the 7th chapter, Krishna has explained that he impregnates the living entities into material nature. This is done by his looking upon material nature, and so in this instance, Christians hearing the devotees' words of love in offering food stuffs is wholly identical with his eating and actually tasting. This point should be emphasized because of his absolute position. His hearing is wholly identical with his eating and tasting. Only the devotee who accepts Krishna as he describes himself without interpretations can understand that the supreme absolute truth can eat food and enjoy it. Verses 27th. Whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer or give away, and whatever austerities you perform, do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. Thus, it is the duty of everyone to mold his life in such a way that he will not forget Krishna in any circumstance. Everyone has to work for maintenance of his body and soul together, and Krishna recommends herein that one should work for him. Everyone has to eat something to live. Therefore, he should accept the remnants of foodstuffs offered to Krishna. Any civilized man has to perform some religious ritualistic ceremonies. Therefore, Krishna recommends, do it for me, and this is called archan. Everyone has a tendency to give something in charity. Krishna says, give it to me, and this means that all surplus money accumulated should be utilized in furthering the Krishna consciousness movement. Nowadays, people are very much inclined to the meditational process, which is not practical in this age. But if anyone practices meditating on Krishna 24 hours a day by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra round his beads, he is surely the greatest meditator and the greatest yogi, as substantiated by the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, verses 28. In this way, you will be freed from bondage to work and its auspicious and inauspicious results. With your mind fixed on me in this principle of renunciation, you will be liberated and come to me. One who acts in Krishna consciousness under superior direction is called Yukta. The technical term is Yukta Vairagya. This is further explained by Rup Goswami as follows. Rup Goswami says that as long as we are in this material world, we have to act. We cannot cease acting. Therefore, if actions are performed and thus fruits are given to Krishna, then that is called Yukt Vairagya. Actually, situated in renunciation, such activities clear the mirror of the mind, and as the actor gradually makes progress in spiritual realization, he becomes completely surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, at the end, he becomes liberated, and this liberation is also specified. By this liberation, he does not become one with the Brahm Jyoti, but rather enters into the planet of the Supreme Lord. It is clearly mentioned here, Ma'am Opeziasi, he comes to me back home, back to Godhead. There are 5 different states of liberation, and here it is specified that the devotee who has always lived his lifetime here under the direction of the Supreme Lord, as started as has evolved to the point where he can, after quieting this body, go back to Godhead and engage directly in the association of the Supreme Lord. Anyone who has no interest but to dedicate his life to the service of the Lord is actually a sannyasi. Such a person always thinks of himself as an eternal servant dependent on the supreme will of the Lord. As such, whatever he does it for the benefit of the Lord. Whatever action he performs it as service to the Lord. He does not give serious attention to the fruitive activities or prescribed duties mentioned in the Veds. For ordinary persons, it is obligatory to execute the prescribed duties mentioned in the Veds, but although a pure devotee who is completely engaged in the service of the Lord may sometimes appear to go against the prescribed Vedic duties, actually it is not so. It is said, therefore, by Vaishnava authorities that even the most intelligent person cannot understand the plans and activities of a pure devotee. The exact words are Tantravakya, Kriya, Mudra, Vijneha, Na, Bhujya. A person who is thus always engaged in the service of the Lord, or is always thinking and planning how to serve the Lord, is to be considered completely liberated at present, and in the future he is going to back to Godhead, is guaranteed. He is above all materialistic criticisms, just as Krishna is above all criticisms. Verses 29th. I envy no one, nor am I partial to anyone. I am equal to all, but whoever renders service unto me in devotion is a friend, is in me, and I am also friend of to him. One may question here that if Krishna is equal to everyone and no one is his special friend, then why does he take a special interest in the devotees who are always engaged in his transcendental service? But this is not discrimination. It is natural. Any man in this material world may be very charitable disposed, yet he has a special interest in his own children. The Lord claims that every living entity in whatever form in his Son, and so he provides everyone with a generous supply of the necessities of life. He is just like a cloud which pours rain all over, regardless of whether it falls on rock or land or water. But for his devotees, he gives specific attention. Such devotees are mentioned here. They are always in Krishna consciousness and therefore are always transcendently situated in Krishna. The very phrase Krishna consciousness suggests that those who are in such consciousness are living transcendentalists situated in him. The Lord says here distinctly, Mayati, they are in me naturally as a result. The Lord is also in them. This is reciprocal. This also explains the words E yatha mam, whoever surrenders unto me. Proportionality, I take care of him. This transcendental reciprocation exists because both the Lord and the devotee are conscious when a diamond is set in a golden ring. It looks very nice. The gold is glorified, and at the same time, the diamond is glorified. The Lord and the living entity eternally glitter. And when a living entity becomes included to the service of the Supreme Lord, he looks like gold. The Lord is a diamond, and so this combination is very nice. Living entities is in a pure state are called devotees. The Supreme Lord becomes the devotee of his devotees if a reciprocal relationship is not present between the devotee and the Lord. Then there is no personalist philosophy. In the impersonal philosophy, there is no reciprocation between the supreme and the living entity. But in the personalist philosophy, there is. The example is often given that the Lord is like a desired tree, and whatever one wants from this desire tree, the Lord supplies. But here the explanation is more complete. The Lord is here started to be partial to the devotees. This is manifestation of the Lord's special mercy to the devotees. The Lord reciprocation should not be considered to be under the law of karma. It belongs to the transcendental situation in which the Lord and his devotees function. Devotional service to the Lord is not an activity of this material world. It is part of the spiritual world where eternity, bliss and knowledge predominate. Thank you so much and have a great good day.